All right, let's go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody joining today. I'm very excited about the presenters that we have today. I am recovering a little bit from a cold, so if I sound a little weird and don't seem as excited as I normally am, that is why. Let's go ahead and just jump in. There's not a lot I got as far as introductions and announcements. Um, Today, very excited. We have Christina Gorga and Emily Kund, both here, pillars of the community, both with very exciting new topics to discuss. So very excited to pass it over to them shortly to talk about their points here. So Christina is going to talk about writing and sharing data journey and some tips and tricks that go along with that. And Emily is going to talk about her chart chooser project, which sounds very interesting.
Welcome to Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. You are in the meeting now.
Jessica, I'm going to mute you so we don't hear your Zoom introduction. All right. So really the only thing I've got, and I'd be surprised if you don't know about this already, as far as an announcement, is Iron Biz. Qualifying round is going on right now. I know quite a few people are very interested in contributing and entering into the competition this year. You probably already know what Iron Biz is. It's the big annual competition that Tableau holds. This year, they're only going to do one feeder competition. And essentially, instead of just picking the top three, they're going to pick the top one from three different regions. So America, APAC, and EMEA. They're going to select the number one visualization from each of those three. And those three winners will then compete in the actual Tableau conference later in 2023. The competition qualifying theme is games. So that could be, video games, board games, sports, anything like that. So if you have any interest in that, definitely take the time. You've got roughly, 11 days now. So still got some good time to go through and compete. Okay. So I'm gonna move my screens around a little bit and introduce Christina. So Christina, very much. Oh, sorry. I skipped on a page. So real quick before I introduce Christina, looking for any future speakers. So if anybody here is interested in being a speaker on one of our future sessions, just reach out to Aaron, Heather, or myself, and just let us know. We're always looking for people in the community, even if you haven't done any sort of speaking sessions on any other tugs. If you have any interest, just reach out to us and we'll talk about it and we'll get you slotted. Okay, so please welcome Christina. Christina is a designer strategist based in Northern Virginia. Found her way to data analytics career via her past work experience in cognitive science and education research. She advocates for individuals switching careers into data and works with mothers, the Moms Who Viz community. Big one here. She is the 2018 Michael Christiani Community Founders Award winner. Means that she rocks and she helps everybody with all their problems and is very supportive. So very thankful to have Christina here. She's also the co-founder and co-lead of the Data FamCon Community Challenge, which celebrates geek and pop culture data. Is straight up my alley. Core of her beliefs is that diversity in backgrounds and education enhances the data visualization field. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Christina, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that intro. I'm going to go ahead and get myself set up here. Fair warning, everyone. This is my first time actually using Figma for a slide presentation. So we have a little bit of bits and starts here. That's because this is brand new to me, as it is probably to a lot of you. So anyways, I want to talk a little bit about something that is Tableau adjacent today. Seems to be the trend of a lot of the talks I've been giving lately, but it's something that is somewhat new to me. And I want to share a little bit about what my experience has been like about talking about my data journey and talking about, topics that are related to data with others, and then how you can build up some systems for success for yourself if you want to start on something of a similar journey. So with that, a little bit about me, in addition to what, Zach just said, again, I'm a data strategist at Booz Allen Hamilton. We're a federal consulting firm, so based here out in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm probably a Tableau granny by now, although Emily, who's on this call, has probably been using Tableau way even longer than I have. But by many standards in the Tableau community now, I am probably a Tableau granny. So I've been using it since 2016. Funny enough, by way of the Midwest, I am actually from the Midwest originally, so by way of Indianapolis. So I was born and raised there, but I've jumped a little bit past college in the Great Lake region since college. So went to college at the small liberal arts college in Michigan, found my way to Pittsburgh, was in Akron, Cleveland area for a while, and then found my way in DC in the early 2010s. And I've been there ever since. So definitely familiar with Columbus and Cleveland areas. So even though I'm talking virtually here today, definitely familiar with the Central Ohio. I'm actually a former cognitive scientist by training, and I actually did my doctoral training at Kent State. So if there's any Kent State flashes on here, whoop, whoop. I'm basically an education researcher turned a data viz designer. Like many people that go into data viz, it was not a career path in the late 2000s, early 2010s when I started on that journey. And now I'm doing data viz for my day job. So just kind of bizarre. So you never know what you might end up doing. 10 years from now, things can change. Being open to new opportunities is always a big component of my career. But fun fact is that I actually used to do competitive karaoke in the DC area. And I've actually won several times in DC's district karaoke week. So never a dull moment in my life. So early on, when I was starting on my data analytics sort of career path, as I pivoted, slowly away from education work, I remember one of my first conversations with a person in the community. Funny enough, another native C-bus, I guess Columbusian. I don't know what you guys call yourselves. But Bridget Cogley, she said, "Hey, Christina, you should start blogging." And I remember various iterations of this over and over and over again for a couple of years. And she was just kind of like egging me on. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to try. And so what I'll put down here is like, at least I could say I tried, because it went a little bit like this. I started a WordPress, like many, you either did a Tumblr or you did a WordPress in the 2010s. I did for a time have a WordPress that I blogged on sporadically. Some things were about data, some things were about Tableau, but mostly it was just about kind of random things going on in my head that most people probably don't need to care about. But ever since I had a Twitter account, which I had a Twitter account available since 2009, I really started to pivot more my use of Twitter towards data analytics and the Tableau community in that fashion back in about 2016. And so I started using Twitter as my main way to talk with other people about data. And then I used, occasionally more Twitter as that time went on. Of course, several years later, became a mom. And then, of course, good old 2020 happened. And I decided to kind of go on a mini social media fast like many people did, because it was a lot to take in. And then I pivoted into using LinkedIn posting a lot more. I started seeing a lot more people using LinkedIn for posting and getting into a different maybe community of people that weren't necessarily Tableau or Tableau adjacent. Maybe they were just generally data analytics community that wanted to talk more about related topics in that career. So was starting to use LinkedIn a little bit more. And then I started also using Twitter back again, where at this point, I'm just like, help me, I need to figure out something that's a better way, method for me to start writing. And so I sort of made my way to using, somewhat of, I would guess, I wanted to figure out a way that I could do it in bite-sized content that would fit better in my lifestyle. Meaning at this point, I'm working in a consulting job. It's usually, at bits and, times I'm often working, longer hours. So I need to figure out what are ways that I can contribute my ideas in little bite-sized ways that, don't mess too much with my, day-to-day schedule. And, in the times where I actually want to do something that's not in front of my computer, I can do something that's not related to that. So I started using, again, the Tiny Tableau Tips hashtag, which have been out for some time. And actually, Emily, that's on here right now, was also one of the first people I started seeing using the hashtag tiny Tableau tip. So at that time, I think this was back in maybe winter of 2022, maybe even previously before that, I started utilizing that occasionally in a bunch of my posts, and some got more traction than others, but I was kind of liking using Twitter as more of a way to do very quick bits and resources for people rather than just writing very long form uh, blog posts at that point. So if you look on the Tally Tableau tip on Twitter, if you've ever, if you do have a Twitter account or you just looked at, excuse me, stuff on the Tableau community, that's a great way to get sort of like, excuse me. Apologies. Excuse me. Wow. Where was I? Ah, yes. So, okay, I'm here. Okay, sorry guys, had a little bit of a coughing fit there. Was not anticipated.
We can give you a second, Christina. I know
Can you give
you're
me a
getting over.
second?
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you. I
getting.
appreciate it.
Christina is also getting over being sick a little bit, just like I am. So
I know it's been a fun week.
it has been. We've been talking about how we both had some struggles with, even talking on the phone and people understanding what we're saying, and so cough it out, Christina. Get it. You take your time. We're completely fine. So let's think about other things. I was just going to say we can talk about Iron Viz a little bit while I'm giving Christina a minute here. So, has anybody seen any of the Iron Viz submissions yet so far this year? And you can feel free to jump in the chat or even unmute yourself if you guys have seen any Iron Viz entries of the year so far. I know I've seen a couple of them. Nobody's seen any of them.
I should be
Christina,
good,
you
Zach.
feel
Now,
you good? All right.
yeah, I
That's,
am.
that's
Wow, I've only seen somebody else do this on a tug call before, like once or twice. So thank
that's
you for
totally
that. It's
fine.
just,
Like I said, it's I completely get it. I've been sick last week. It's those little kids, like we said, it's their fault. Their fault completely.
those darn germ infested children.
What are they even worth? Like it's more
I
trouble.
know, it's all good. Well, we're all here, and that didn't take that much time. So, as I was saying, I was trying to figure out what was the best method for me to start writing a little bit more consistently. And some of this actually, I had to sort of take a step back and wonder, is this actually related more to my personal branding? And what do I actually want to talk about with other people? And so these were some, questions I asked myself in addition to some conversations I was having with other women in the community as well, including Eva Murray and Bridget Cogley. So, the main questions that I sort of posed to myself were, what are some words or characteristics that you want people to associate with you? So oftentimes when people would talk about me or, when I would, go into huddles with other women and we would sort of talk about, positive characteristics about what we associate with each other, usually people would say Christina's very engaging. She's very enthusiastic about what she, talks about, especially as it relates to, helping other people in the community. So if I want to talk a little bit more about helping others, what are ways that I can give to others? So what are ways that I can frame sort of my existing skill set? What are the experiences that I have, maybe some of the struggles that I've had, as well as some of my successes, and trying to figure out from there what I can best, where I can best fit into giving to others. And then another point from, maybe more from number one, maybe less so to number two, what's my long-term vision? Maybe these side activities and the writing that I'm doing can turn into something eventually more. So thinking less, short term, but also long term in terms of building out what might work well with, the content that I'm writing. So these were all things that I was considering as I was going through that sort of process. And so what do I have to say that's uniquely my own? What trends do I find interesting to talk about with others? So I was starting to look through some of my previous writing, even across like the last year or two, and really trying to find patterns in what I was writing about, even if it was just on little bite-sized pieces on Twitter. So what I found was that I was talking a lot about themes related to servant leadership. Some of it is around career transitions, because a lot of people that are coming into data often aren't from technical backgrounds. Some of them are actually from, maybe humanities or social sciences, or maybe they're teachers. Maybe they're teachers that found a love for data longer on in their life. I can point out a bunch of different people that relate to like those particular kinds of career paths, even within the Tableau community. And finding mentors and people that, sort of fit that mold. And then the other thing I really try to do, even in my day job, is I'm trying to build out resources for my teams, especially internally within Booz Allen, as well as externally. So building out resources for teams for success in rolling out, data platforms. And then a bigger part of that, when it comes down to that enablement piece, is really under data education. And I really made that a bigger part of, what I've been trying to write about for the last couple of months. And then the last piece is like, this is probably a bigger thing than maybe the last four, is really trying to advocate for women in data related careers. What are, struggles that women are having? What are our successes? How do we need to champion each other? So I was finding certain themes there that I wanted to say, okay, maybe I should work on this a little bit more. Maybe I should be finding a little bit more themes and, maybe a little bit more connection with that, and maybe writing a little bit more about that in the future. And then I was also looking at, what are others talking about? Maybe I'm not the best match, here for now. You probably, if any of you have been in the Tableau community for, at least the past 1 to 2 years, there's been a huge growth in the number of external design resources that people are using outside of Tableau, including Figma, which I've actually developed a slide deck on. And there's a lot of voices in that conversation right now, and I'm still learning a lot there. So I probably am not the best person to talk about design resources, at least for now. And then, there's a lot of conversations right now about PrEP, Alteryx, DBT, ETL work, which again, not my strong suit. I'll let other people do that, that are really strong in talking about those topics. And there's a couple of fantastic people writing and doing vlogs about that right now. I just wanted to be able to figure out what is the niche that I'm not hearing as much about in people with, maybe my level of experience, I would say like mid-career. Are we having enough women in our community that are talking about these things? Not really. So trying to figure out what that niche is and how I can best, build that out. And, talking about building things out, ultimately, when I've been reading a lot about starting to do a digital writing process, ultimately, you need to build up systems that are going to create better habits. You have to build out a system. It's one thing to just have, new habits or things that you put into your, schedule, or, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day and write. But to be honest, most of us aren't early morning risers, and that might not work for everybody. But if you can figure out if there's certain elements of your day, what would your ideal day look like if you were to set yourself up for success? And then also fun things too. So finding systems that work well for you to write, even little small bit-sized portions more frequently, rather than, writing really long form blogs, and having to commit to that long term. One thing that I've found for myself is really helpful is to keep a notepad by my desk or by my bed, actually, and just having that openly available to me, when I'm out and about, or when I'm at my work and I just have like an idea that I want to write about at some point, maybe not right away, but maybe just kind of keep it in the back of my mind, write it out. So keeping that available to myself has been really helpful. Another thing too is to automate, making sure that you have maybe a set of tools that will allow you to automate and schedule out some of your posts that you're, hard at work at, and putting out. My thing is ultimately, relating to keeping a notepad for ideas is, draft for now and publish later. Ultimately, you're going to want to have, maybe a set of, ongoing drafts in your draft inbox for whatever, tool that you're ending up using. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, and I might even pivot to showing you all what I'm doing for my drafting in TypeShare. But ultimately, what I like to do is keep a couple of drafts in the hopper before I actually publish. So that way I always have something going no matter what week it is. And then ultimately building it into my calendar. So for myself right now, I like to do my things either towards the later end of the day, or I do them earlier on in my day before my work starts. So find the times, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes to, go ahead and set time to publish or draft those little itty bitty visual writing posts that you want to put out there. And that way it'll just become more or less a part of your calendar, just like filling out, in the consulting world, I have a little reminder at the end of my workday to say, fill out your timesheet, Christina. And honestly, having those little built-in reminders helps me keep that up and not forget things. And I definitely need those systems to allow me to not forget things, because let's face it, I am one step away always from, throwing a bunch of balls in the air and something will end up breaking. So making sure that I'm building certain systems into my calendar to make that work for me. And then ultimately consistency. People, when we do blogging or, content creators, you see people putting out things on YouTube. You like to see consistency, right? If you know that that particular person always rolls something out on a Sunday or a Wednesday morning, making that part of your consistent writing or content building workspace. So if you want to do it daily, if you really want to do one of those ship 30 for 30 kind of journaling or writing scenarios, or do you want to do something that's a little bit, maybe a lower lift, like weekly, or, say, for example, even trying something like bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, or monthly, if you want to do that. Just finding some sort of consistency and how you are writing and how you are pushing out that information, no matter what the length of it is really crucial to building out that personal branding and with your writing persona. And then, of course, the biggest thing I can tell you this is, as data viz designers, we probably think about this a lot too, because a lot of us are perfectionists, but done is always better than perfect. And if you're just putting things out there, that is way better than not doing it at all. So I would always encourage you, if you have those set in draft, go ahead and push it to publish. It's, whether it's only being seen by 5 people or 500 people, putting it out there is better than just letting it sit in your drafts folder forever. And then, at least in terms of trying out new tools, and I may actually, with, maybe a minute or two that we have here after this one, I'm just going to round out what the tools that I'm trying out right now to make my writing a little bit easier for me. One thing is I use TweetDeck. I switched to using TweetDeck about 6 or 7 months ago, mostly just to manage the onslaught of Twitter. Obviously a lot of us in the Tableau community use Twitter very heavily, but I found that that was kind of a way for me to sort of declutter my Twitter experience for myself, and also focusing more on, conversations around data careers, and then also more loosely across the whole data viz and information design work span. So managing my Twitter has allowed me to sort of curate better writing for what I want to do. The other thing, when I was relating to automating and figuring out what I need to do for, scheduling out my posts at certain times, I use a tool called Hyperion, and that will allow you to schedule out in advance all of your posts for, I think it's specifically for Twitter and LinkedIn. There may be something else there as well, but those are the ones that I primarily use. And then the last thing, I've started to switch fully to TypeShare as of this summer. That is my primary blog space now. So that way I can either post things to either LinkedIn and Twitter, as well as Medium. So I also have a Medium blog as well. So whatever platform you decide to put your writing out there, TypeShare will allow you to modify that in different formats for those different platforms. So that's the kind of nice thing about TypeShare. And then, of course, from more of a design standpoint, if you want to build out some components that are either complementary or supplementary to the work that you're writing, as you're building out a personal brand, one thing I like to do is I started to use Canva a lot more. I used to use it for some informational design in a previous job, but you can use it for all sorts of things. I design it for all sorts of documents, branding, and more. You can also create color palettes on it, which I like. And then, of course, the big one, which has become a bigger, broader topic across the Tableau sphere, is Figma. That's actually what I use to create the slide deck that you're seeing today. So I'm using this more for like headers for my social media, images, icons, and blog components. So that being said, I'd be happy to share my TypeShare so people can know what that looks like. Would that be okay, Zach? Do we have enough time? I need to look at the clock.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mouse over to my mute button. Yeah, we have plenty of time. You're good.
Awesome, great.
We've got 15
So
minutes.
let me go ahead here, and I'm going to switch to sort of my. Can you see my TypeShare library here?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So if you are not familiar with TypeShare, if you've seen a lot of people posting from TypeShare in the past, this is what a TypeShare platform looks like from your social blog and editing space. So you can see here, and let's be honest here, I probably haven't been the best writer of all here, but you can see I have published a couple of writings here back in late August here. So this is when I really started to build that out. From here, you have sort of a library. You have things in queue, so things that you're set to, have scheduled out to publish. And then you also have drafts. So this is the nice thing, is that I have a number of working drafts here. I actually just started on something yesterday about hobbits that I'm going to be posting later this week. And then also here, which is kind of nice, I can sort of show you a little bit about what this looks like from an editing standpoint. And by the way, I do have Grammarly, the Grammarly plugin into my Chrome browser, which is really nice because it's embedded into all my writing tools as well as for email. So that's really helpful for something like blogging. If you want to have that plugged in, allows me to quickly, adjust my grammar and my typos and spelling checks. So that's really helpful to have. But, the way that this is typically built out is you'll see, you'll have something like here. It's like I can edit this for all different platforms here. So this is set up to go either on all three of these platforms. As I mentioned before, it's available for Twitter, Medium, and LinkedIn posts. So if you have a Medium blog and you want to double or triple post to different places the same blog post, you can do that as well. You'll have like that sort of like that larger header. And then what I usually do is I go ahead and I just kind of start like writing out that, maybe that first paragraph here. And then if I wanted to go to a next line, you'll see this little, little plus sign here, and it'll give you a bunch of written, I should mention this is the free version of TypeShare. There are other options for templates in TypeShare if you have one of the paid versions, but the thing about the free version that is still quite flexible for building out Twitter threads. So here you can set it out. You can have a paragraph block followed by different headings. If you wanted to add an image or a GIF, you can do that too. And you can do embeds. And then of course, my favorite thing is I do like bulleted lists often. So I can put like thought 1, thought 2, thought 3, etc. And that way I just sort of build out sort of a template for like how I want this thing to look like in the future. And then what I'll just go ahead and do is maybe go down to space again, and then maybe just end up with, some sort of block quote followed by another paragraph to end. So there's a lot of different ways that you can sort of build out your type share. And then if I wanted to go ahead and build this into, maybe a single image here on the right-hand side, you'll see this panel over here. There's an image option as well if you just want to pull it into a single image. That's the one that's being clicked on right now. If you want to have it split into a different thread, so it'd be split across multiple things in a thread, which I think I should mention Eva Murray actually does that quite a bit in her post. She's one of the co-leaders of Makeover Monday, and she uses this platform a lot for her stuff too. The nice thing about using the image option is that you can also provide alt text there for accessibility, which I think is a great thing, that this type share is a tool that's already built out for accessibility in mind. And then ultimately, before you go ahead and you publish it, you can make sure and you can basically preview what it's going to look like before it goes live. So that's sort of I guess a sort of a really quick run through of TypeShare. I really liked using this platform. Only thing I think that would be helpful is if I had like a nice and easy app for it. I don't think it exists in an app. It only exists for desktop at this time. It would be great if I actually had an easy way to just do things on the go on my phone, because I live a lot more on my phone than I actually do on my desktop. But there are a lot more options than just this. If you want to go ahead and follow me, and I'm just going to go back to sharing my deck here. But if you want to go ahead and share, maybe some blogs or, writing tools that have really helped you along your path, I'd really be interested in seeing what other people are using. But that's the newer tools to me that I'm starting to use a little bit more frequently to build out sort of my blogging and like writing persona. But that is pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions?
And feel free to either unmute yourself or put them in the chat if you do. Christina, is there any particular blog or post of yours that you were most proud of, or that you were really happy with how it ended up going?
Actually, one of my ones that I posted a lot about finding like sort of getting through like creative doldrums. I really liked writing that one because I think a lot of us, especially the fact that we are in such a creative focused career, I think oftentimes we sort of forget, what other ways can we, either relieve some of that stress, but also being able to build out some more, different ideas that may not necessarily come from the work that we do. So I'm really proud of that. And then especially I'm proud of a lot of the stuff that I've been writing lately about, related to burnout and how to support people that may be approaching burnout, or how to talk to your team members about it, because I think that that's a very underspoken about topic right now that I think, 2 years into, plus years into the last, scenario that we find ourselves, I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what are ways that I could still grow my career, but also, maintain those boundaries. So those are the things I'm very proud of. And I'm glad that people are talking about it more, maybe because, people actually want to talk about this and it just hasn't been a big part of the conversation until recently.
Awesome. And you should, once you have a second, maybe post those links in the chat to those posts.
I will.
That would be great. Anybody have any other questions for Christina? I'll ask one more. If anybody in the call here was interested in starting to write, what would be the number one tip you'd give them? What should they start with the very first thing?
Is that to me?
Yeah, to you. Yep.
If you were wanting to ever start writing and you didn't really know how, I would just say I know this sounds very, I don't know, blasé, but I think talking and writing about what you like is a the best way to go, because people like talking about themselves. And I know that sounds kind of selfish, but people really do like talking about stuff that they do, whether it's their hobbies or, things that they're working on at work that they're really proud of, and sharing that with others. I think that that shows in people's writing really well if they take that approach rather than just talking about something that, you know, they might be working on, but they're not like super passionate about. So I feel like that definitely folds over also into what people viz too. You could probably say someone like a Zach Bowders, he's like viz what you love. I would also say like write about what you love too. So for me, it's talking about, things that sort of go across genres. So talking about science fiction and like the fine arts and how it relates to how I've approached my career. So
Awesome. That's really good feedback. And as I said, that was really great presentation, Christina. I appreciate you joining us here for the Columbus Tug, and I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of new fans and followers here.
okay. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I'll pass it over to Heather to introduce our good friend Emily.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Christina. That was fantastic. I am super excited to introduce Emily. Emily Kund is a Tableau enablement consultant at Red Hat, where she helps enable users to create and interact with engaging and informative visualizations to make data-informed decisions. In addition to working at Red Hat, Emily is the founder of Tableau Fringe Festival, co-founder of Data Plus Women and Data Plus Women DC. Emily is an advisory board member of the Data Leadership Collaborative and is an accessibility advocate. Prior to working in the data visualization space, Emily held managerial and leadership positions, taught and created data viz and leadership training. Take it away, Emily.
All right, well, thank you so much for that intro. I'll get ready and share my screen here. And let's see, here we go. So today I am super pumped because I am introducing this new project that I have called Chart Chooser. It's about choosing the chart that's right for your data and your audience. So what I'll be chatting about, I'll go over the background, how Chart Chooser came to be, what it is, how it's developed, where it's available, and next steps. But first, to give a little more color to Heather's intro, Emily, and I am a marketing fanatic. I love it. I love creating launch plans and really just sharing the work, because when people put a lot of effort into their work, you want people to see it. But I love like genuine marketing from like a servant leadership perspective. I'm also a mom, 14 and 11-year-old kids, which are like, it blows my mind that they're that old. I'm an accessibility advocate, a data viz Tableau trainer, not certified, but created my own content and helped do that for Red Hat as well. I am obsessed with user-centered experiences, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I love coffee. You're probably going to see me drink some. I'm all-American woman. That's just not like I'm an all-American woman. Actually, that's a title. I won a national title over like 2 weekends ago from a pageant. So that's kind of cool. And I have an invisible disability. And the reason why I share that is one, because I think it's important for people to know that, there are things that kind of come up. I've been dealing with some health stuff over the last month or so. So I am, things aren't exactly where I want them to be with different aspects of my life. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that we all have stuff. And my stuff just a lot of times is invisible. But let's talk about the Chart Chooser. One of the reasons why I had this idea was because one, I've already mentioned that I've like become obsessed with user center experiences, but really visual analytics made me that obsessed. Because what I was telling folks at work was when they would come to me with their dashboards for feedback, I would say, okay, well, like, where do you want them to click next? What do you want that experience to be? And I like a lot of times I would be like, I felt like I was conducting music. I'm like, do you want it to flow this way? Like, what are they going to do with it? Where do they want to click next? Do you want them to dig for that insight? Or do you want to like, serve up that gold nugget? Or do you want to have them to dig for that treasure? Like, what do you want that experience to be? And sometimes, over my career, I've seen where folks will create charts, and I've been guilty of this too. Like I wanted to do something that showed off my technical skills. And then I had the audience go, yeah, but how do you read that? And I was like, okay, well, they just need training. So it's like, no big deal. I'll train them on it and then they'll get it. And then I tried to train them on it. And they were like, yeah, but like, how do you read that? And I'm like, okay, I don't understand what you don't understand about this. It's quite clear. And like 17 gyrations later, and that's how you read it. At some point, maybe it's you and the chart, not them. And so this, I was really reminded of that incident with my circle plots when I heard Keith Dykstra speak at TC. He and Kendra Allensbach have this fantastic talk that if you have the opportunity, like get them in to talk with you about it. It's about creating user-centered dashboards. And one of my biggest takeaways is it's not about what I think the best chart is, it's what the user needs. And Keith shares a story about how like he wanted to visualize something, but really what the users needed and what they were accustomed to and what they could synthesize quickly was a table. But that tends not to be visual. So a lot of folks would like try to make it visual, and really they just needed a table, but like a super cool table. So that's where I've seen that it's like, okay, well, we really need to consider what the audience needs. And sometimes, I think I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if we could take visual vocabularies and then just extend them out to the user? And what I mean is like, like if you like, okay, cool, a violin plot or a bee swarm or insert fancy name here chart is really cool for visualizing distribution or whatever type of data. But like, does your audience understand how to read that? And will that be a hindrance to you having a successful visualization dashboard, whatever you use? And so that's where I thought about kind of combining these two, because what I see, and also kind of work inspired me to do this too, we started measuring how many views per dashboard, which dashboards were being accessed, when was their last access date. And so we have people, and this is like across every kind of organization. You build a dashboard, it's not like, what is it, Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. It's not like that. So, they built the dashboard, and then some of those dashboards sit out there and then they just take up space, or nobody uses it. And it was a lot of work to get to that point where you were able to provide a dashboard. So what could help somebody create a successful dashboard? Well, we always hear about choosing the chart that's right for the data, but what about the audience? And that's really what inspired me to really think about what that would look like. And that's how the chart chooser was born. So what it is, it's an interactive tool that helps you choose the chart that's right for your data, right for your audience, and even your general skill set. So it's meant to be tool agnostic, though iteration 1 is built in Tableau, because that's where my current skill set is. So let me plop on over. Plop is probably not the best term. Let me tab on over to Tableau. And I'm actually, sometimes you have these things happen and it's like, oh, wait. Oh, Tableau. Whoop, that's, yeah, there we go, maybe. I may have a few different instances open. There we go. It's just taking its time. That's all. So what I've done, and I really wanted this to be something that was open sourced, kind of working for Red Hat, I feel that that's part of who I need to be in life. But for me, this project is really around really like truly helping people, giving them a tool to help them pick the best chart so that whatever the information is, that it's helping their end user take that next step, that next action, or ask that next question. I really am like all about visual analytics because I know, like how I think we're all like this. Like we feel so passionately about it because we want to make an impact on the business. We want to help people. And this is my way of helping people is on the front end, like when you're developing, like use this and see, does it make sense? But one of the things that I also wanted to do with this project is to personally challenge myself. So yeah, iteration 1 is in Tableau, but I want to code it in HTML maybe, because let's be honest, I don't have like super advanced coding skills. And so I'm learning HTML. But coding it so that way folks I know this is a Tableau user group, but the folks who haven't made their way yet to Tableau, or maybe they don't have a license at home and they're not on Tableau Public. Whether you're using Excel, Power BI, Flourish, or whatever the case may be, you can still benefit from this until they use Tableau. So that was part of it, is having a coding aspect to it. So I'm super excited about what that future looks like. But then I also wanted information to be stored in GitHub, which is a new tool to me as well. And I wanted information about the charts themselves, but something that's really consumable. Because what I find, and I think part of it is like the bias that I have. I was a business user. I was a bank examiner. I was always rushed for time. I didn't have time to learn all of the intricacies. I didn't have the time and I didn't prioritize it. I just didn't have the desire to really get in. I really just wanted the data to get the insight to make the decision or ask the question or do the presentation. All of the other stuff is like a necessary evil to me. So, so for me, I wanted this information to be really consumable. It's not going to be like a novella on each chart, but just something that you get a nice foundation and more information about the chart. So let me kind of walk through what I did, and as I'm walking through it, like also why I did it. So, this is inspired really from FT's visual vocabulary as well as the data viz catalog, and it extends it out as I just talked about. I've also included, because as an accessibility advocate, I feel like that's also part of what I need to be in life, is to also share information about how accessible a chart generally is. So that way you kind of know more information. And really part of my desire in doing that is really just to kind of keep putting accessibility out there. So that way it becomes perhaps a little more top of mind. But effectively, like I've talked about, or I've written this also in a way that I'm hoping is easy to understand. So instead of asking what your audience's graph literacy level is, I've written it to say, what is your audience's reading level for charts? Select all that apply. And then, so I'll keep this at low and medium. What are you trying to show with the data? And then I have an example here, deviation or comparison. So let me do relationships and targets perhaps, and comparison. I don't know. I'm kind of randomly going through there, but you get the idea. And then choose your oh, I have a typo. I'll fix that. Choose your proficiency level to learn which charts are best suited for you. And so I added this because somebody was like, you know what would be really helpful is if, like, what if it recommends doing an arc chart and I don't know how to do an arc chart? And I was like, that's a really good point. So what is your proficiency level? And maybe I'll just say beginner and intermediate. And so then it filters down to, based on your selections, the charts you should consider. Now, again, I selected a lot on question 1. So bar or column chart, donut, grid plot, isotype, lollipop, paired bar, pie, stacked, table, tree map, and Venn for the 3, oops, sorry, not question 1, sorry, question 2, for the 3 areas that I selected. And then what would happen is I can select this bar chart. And I did have, this is where, oh, this didn't work out quite as well. I had an icon here, but the icons aren't lining up. So that's not going to be in what you see today. But there's an icon associated with each of the charts that are recommended. And then it gives you information on the GitHub. So you can see, like, the objective is comparison. And sorry that I don't know what's happening with Tableau Desktop right now, but the website object is working. So this description it's great for showing comparisons for a category. Bars are where bar charts where the bars are horizontal, whereas columns are oriented in a vertical manner. Some key information about a bar chart, how to create this chart. So you can visit the following resources. So you can reverse engineer the chart in the Tableau visual vocabulary, Power BI, ggplot, Vega, Excel, which is available for purchase. And then, if you find it helpful, share it out. If you have a request, let me know. So I have 48 different chart types that I will be building out, but in this first release, I'm actually just showing a handful, more of the beginner, low graph literacy level. So that way that kind of hits the more common charts. And then once that's done, then I can release the others, because I could take more time to work on this and to get all of that good information for like a bee swarm or violin plot, which would be nice. But I could help more people. I could start helping people now versus waiting until it's like fully refined and fully complete. Fully complete, that's redundant, but complete before I release it. So this done is better than perfect that Christina talked about. And unfortunately, this just doesn't, the visual that you might be seeing where it's kind of coming in and out doesn't look great. I also I thought I was working on Tableau Public, but then I was having a connection issue with GitHub. So I'm going to have to figure that out. So this is like the early look. This is like the sneak peek. And then the official launch will be hopefully this weekend or maybe Monday once I get it all sorted out. And then Zach was giving me a nice tip with the new release of linking the images. So I might be able to pop those into GitHub, and then that'll take care of some of my shape file issues that I've got going on. So let me hop back over to the slide deck for a second, because I'll explain kind of where some of this information came from. And there we go. All right. So how it was developed. Well, I didn't think about this all myself. As I mentioned, I reviewed the visual vocabularies. I also didn't include every single chart type. I really wanted to start with more of the common ones. And then I crowdsourced information. I think I put it out there on the Twitters or LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm working on a project and I want to know what is the skill level that you think people need, and what is the literacy for the audience that's required for each of the charts. And so I had generously people went through, because there were about, well, 48 charts, and went through and just input the what their thoughts were on each of the charts that I have in the universe for Chart Chooser currently. And then just based on the count, I assigned the level for each of the charts. And then from an accessibility perspective, which I'll show in a second, I came up with those general kind of general levels, like it's pretty accessible, use caution or make some tweaks. So that way people know, like right out of the gate, how accessible this chart is. Because the more novel the chart is, the less accessible it tends to be. And so again, I wanted to include that accessibility information, which right now is in a tooltip, just so that way people were at least had some awareness of it. I also so this looks like a first iteration, but this is probably like beta, and then the alpha is where somebody said, well, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could indicate the skill needed? So I included that. And so this was before even the Google form went out. And then make sure I add images, which so super bummed I couldn't show you those because I worked really hard on them. And they look so good. But you'll see them soon. So today is the first day that I'm sharing this more broadly. And I'm really excited about it because I know that it can make such a huge impact. So where is it going to be available? So it'll be available on Tableau Public, and kind of the version or the beta version, I suppose, is out there right now, just without the GitHub connection. And then it'll be available on my website, Analytics to Inform. And I'll have some information also on GitHub as well. So that's where all the wiki pages are. And I've got the data there. So I really wanted this to be something that people all over, regardless of tool, could access and use for their audience, for their benefit. And even in companies, if that's what made sense, if there's nothing like this out there. That's kind of my whole purpose with it, is to really help people help their audiences. And also, you want to be the person that has successful dashboards, because then you can become the go-to resource. And so this is also a nice way to help you have a successful dashboard. So my next steps are to expand to phase 2 of charts outside. So I consider phase 1 to be getting those issues that I ran into today, getting those resolved. And then phase 2 will be including more of the advanced charts, building out the Git pages for those charts as well, building a tool agnostic version on my website so that more people can use it, and then continue to socialize it so that new people to visual analytics space can learn. That's really who, if I had to go through and identify my primary or my target audience, new users are probably my target audience, just because I want to help them first. And then if you are old hat to the data viz space, you may want to learn more about other charts you don't know about, or maybe use it as a validation for what you think the chart you should use is. So how can you help? I really would love to build a community around this. As I mentioned, I think it's great for new folks or great for folks who need a reminder, especially on the audience piece. Because if for nothing else, I think it helps you start thinking about what is the graph literacy level of my audience. And then, feel free, like I don't exactly know how to use GitHub, but I'm trying. So I don't know if it's a pull request or something, but contribute to charts, provide feedback. So that way I know the things that I need to, or I should consider for future iterations. So that's Chart Chooser. I kind of went through that. I don't know, it feels like pretty quickly. It doesn't help that Tableau and Git was being wonky today, because otherwise it would have been a much better demo. But I love to connect and talk more about this. Like, my job is enablement. So really, this is extending to my personal time and helping people. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I didn't even put my website there just because I don't blog anymore, Christina, just occasionally. But yeah, I'll be blogging about this for sure. And yeah, that's about it. Okay. Let me stop sharing. Oh, you know what? I do actually want to share. Let me go over to Tableau for 1 second. Because like, I feel like, there we go. I don't know what is going on with that, but, oh, you know what? I was going to show you the tooltip, but I had it on the shape, which is no longer there, which doesn't help my cause, because the tooltip was, I was really proud of it too. Because the tooltip was actually designed to be a little more narrative, because that's how people can consume information easily. That was something I learned at a Tableau conference like a bajillion years ago. And the color palette all matched and highlighted some of the selections. So, all right, I'll stop sharing, look for questions. Let's see, what's the link on Tableau Public for Chart Chooser? I will send that out because it's not quite ready, but I'll put that in the chat.
And I'll make sure, just like we were talking about before, Emily, we'll share that from the Columbus Tug Twitter handle. So if you aren't following that, follow that, and we'll make sure that we promote that once Emily actually puts that out there. Otherwise, definitely follow Emily on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I'm happy to entertain any questions, or even like, credible challenges, like, where did you get that assessment from? I'm happy to talk through that too.
Yeah, and so just to add to that, to anybody, if you have any questions, it looks like Christina's still here too. So honestly, for either of them, if there's any questions that anybody has, you can unmute yourself and talk, or you can put it in there. It does look like we have something here from David.
Yeah, so David, totally fair. I'll put that on my slide deck, but in the chat, I will put my work email. So that way you can email me. And, but really great point, David. I'll make sure to include that in the future.
It might also be good, Emily, if you don't mind putting your website in the chat so people have that.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't use it that much anymore, but I have the chart chooser that I'll host on my website as well. Yes, Kyle, I would love your help, because yeah, I need that.
Yeah, feel free to connect.
Awesome.
I think I follow you on Twitter, so you can find me there too.
I think so.
Pat works with me at Chase, and we host the Tableau Coders Initiative about coding. So he's a good person to know when it comes to this.
Yes,
In
I
all,
tried
in
to,
all other
I
regard,
signed
in
up
all
for
other,
that.
in
I
all other
signed up for
regards, he's
that.
very average, but in this case, sorry.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I attended a meeting and I was like, oh, I think this is over my head. You know what? I'm just gonna go back to hello world. Um, and that's okay.
Awesome. Well, Emily, I'll ask a question to see if anybody thinks of
Sure.
anything while I'm asking. Is there anything in particular that you learned while you were putting this program together that maybe either just in charts in general or in Tableau or anything like that?
Um, ooh,
And
I
while you're
think
thinking about, I'll give you a second to answer the next question. So, David, I think so Emily is working on, there was a visual example, but that was part of what wasn't working. So
yeah,
I think release will actually have a visual example alongside the
yeah,
text.
yeah, yeah, David, for sure. Also, I spent money on some of the icons, so I for sure want to have that out there because then that would be a poor investment on my part. But yes, that's exactly right. Like I wanted to have the icons, and then when you click on the icon, it takes you to the GitHub page as well, so that you can learn about it. And by the way, some of my descriptions are really fun, like an arc chart or a parliament chart is like a what did I say? A dot plot and a gauge chart had a baby, something like that. Um, it's really light and consumable because yeah. Oh, you're referring to a random screenshot? Yeah. So I wanted here's the thing. And full, like super full transparency, I was going to like use this as a way to build my skills in Tableau and all that good stuff. And then I was like, screw that. I don't have time to learn, nor really do I have the desire to learn all of these charts that I'm probably not going to use. So I started doing some stuff in Flourish, and because actually it's super easy. And then I decided that really I just wanted an icon look so that everything was consistent, because I wanted the visual of the chart and not the colors of it to distract from what I was trying to get across. So I actually have the icons done. It's just a matter of like getting them to link up correctly, because that's what was precluding me from showing them to you today, because they weren't, even when I numbered them and did all that stuff. So something that Zach told me about before of linking them, I'll put that in there. Putting the pros and cons for each chart when deciding between a bar and a pie. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I just did a simple thing, but I like the pros and cons piece. I'll have to think about that. I'll put that on like my backlog. Thanks, Scott, for that thought.
And don't think you escaped my question, Emily. So
Oh,
what did
sorry.
you learn? What did you learn from the project so far?
Um, hmm. What I learned, oh gosh, that I don't have to be super complex. I'm learning GitHub, and that's fun and cool. And it's okay for me not to learn some of the more complex charts in Tableau. Sometimes I think that we can make things more difficult. And so like even, I mean, I knew this, but for a while I didn't. When I was first starting, I was like, bar and column, are those two different chart types? Well, no, they're the same thing. They're just like one's flipped on the side and one's not. Or what's another one where like the one chart has like multiple names? I was like, well, that's kind of confusing for folks because especially if you're new to the space. So I think that for me, what this, I don't know if it learned or just a really good reminder of like, simple is okay too. And then we can, as we desire, we can make more complex, or we can go into more depth about it and really get that rich learning and understanding. But if you don't want to do that too, that's all right. Like, I don't think anybody's gonna come hang me up on a cross and burn me alive because I didn't learn how to do a bee swarm or I don't know, a violin plot in Tableau. So what I had to kind of remind myself, and this is something that I have to, like, I struggled with for the longest time. Like Christina talks about how she feels like a Tableau granny, and I'm like, oh girl. Like I've been in this community since 2013 and had major imposter syndrome, really until a couple of years ago, when I was like, ooh, I don't have the technical skills. Even now at work, Sarah Bartlett's my coworker, and she's like, Emily, I don't think you give yourself enough credit. And I'm like, oh, but I can't do all this other stuff. We have our own value that we bring. And I think what this reinforced for me is that I need to bring my value. So I guess if I were to tie what I'm just talking about now and Christina's talk, we all have value that we can bring, even if that value is providing the simple stuff, because simple can also be super valuable. And then doing these not little, but doing this project like exploring GitHub, or learning how to write something in HTML. Now I can get excited about it because this is something that I don't have to do. I'm choosing to do because I think it can, the end result can help people, and I can get really excited about that. So that's kind of an answer, Zach.
No, I
It
like
was
it. I
more
dig
of a
it.
reinforcement than anything.
That's great. Awesome. Well, I'll do one last call for any questions for Emily, for Christina, for the tug leaders. Anybody have any last thoughts, questions, anything?
Hey, Zach, real quick. I was curious, now that we're kind of out of kind of COVID and everything, is there potential to have kind of in-person meeting sessions again, or are we going to kind of stick to just the virtual format?
I would probably expect virtual at least through the end of the year. And I'm thinking probably looking into the beginning of 2023, we'll start doing some in-person stuff again.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, just one last big thank you to Christina, to Emily for joining us. Both presentations were great. For everybody on the line, thank you for joining. And keep on the lookout on both Twitter and LinkedIn for updates for everything to come. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach and Heather.